Welcome aboard the Boat Buyers Secret Weapon podcast, where we're dedicated to helping first-time and experienced boat buyers find the right boat at the best price so they have years and years of boating fun, because life truly is better on a boat. Today's podcast is sponsored by the Boat Buyers Secret Weapon YouTube channel. Don't pay too much for your next boat. Just visit boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/save to watch a short video. Now, let's hop aboard and have some fun.
Hey, it's Captain Matt, Boater Secret Weapon, and today we're going to be talking the best and the worst wake boats, tow boats, water sports boats, whatever you want to call them. So let's take a look at what we're talking about as we're talking about this particular category. We're talking about the inboard V-drive boats that are for wake surfing and wake boarding. What we're not going to be talking about today are the IO, the stern drive, reverse facing drive that Volvo and Mercruiser have that they're putting on Cobalts and Chaparrals and boats like that and calling them surf boats. We're strictly talking about the inboard tow boats that have the V-drive system in most cases. So let's look at the 17 brands that make this type of surf boat that has the inboard. We've got ATX, Avalon Surf Pontoons, which is a little bit different beast. We've got Axios, Centurion, Heyday, Malibu, Mastercraft, MB Boats, Moomba, Montera Surf, another pontoon, Nautique, Pavati, Sanger, Supra, Supreme, Taiga, and Verati. So those are the 17. But let's start with the connection between all of these, because several of the brands are owned by companies that build other boats, starting with Heyday. Heyday's owned by Brunswick, that is a publicly traded company. You'll notice the ones I marked with the asterisk are publicly traded company. Malibu and Axis are owned by the same company, Malibu Boats, that owns Cobalt and Chris Craft. Nautique, Centurion, and Supreme are owned by Correct Craft. They also own Parker Boats, Basscat, Veracraft, Sea Arc, and they own the PCM, Pleasure Craft Engine Group, the PCM engines that are only in those Correct Craft boats. Supra and Moomba, Supra and Moomba are owned by Skier's Choice. They're the parent company. Taiga and ATX. Sanger's a private company that's mainly on the West Coast. MB Boats, again, another private company mainly on the West Coast. Pavati, Verati are two additional companies. I've sort of put them in a different category, and we'll talk about why in just a little bit. Montera and Avalon Surf Pontoons, because they're pontoon hulls, we're going to throw them out of this conversation right now. If you like the idea of the pontoon surf boat, then you can dive a little deeper. I'll probably do a video on both of those brands in the future. But for right now, we're going to focus on these brands. We're going to talk about used a little bit later, but let's start with one of the most important things when you're looking at surf boats and wakeboard boats, and that's the wave. What kind of wave does it produce? You need a little bit different wave for surfing than you do for wakeboarding. And within the surfing category, which is the big thing that people are doing right now, is the wave. It's different. As a beginner, you want a different wave than as an advanced rider. If you're 225 pounds, you want a different wave than if you're 125 pounds. So there's all these variances, and I can't say this boat makes the best wave, because the best wave is different for everybody. So I'm going to talk about how waves are created, and then I talk about how each of these brands creates their waves, what they do. So there's three ways the wakes are created. The first is by hull design and the weight. Okay, so what I mean by that is the actual shape of the hull. The more displacement that the hull has, the more water it displaces as it moves through it, the bigger the wake it's going to create, and the heavier the boat is, the bigger the wake it's going to create. So the more V that is going to be in the water, it's going to sink down lower, it's going to displace more water as it moves through it. The flatter the hull, the less wake it's going to create. So that's one of the things you can look at is, does the hull naturally produce a large wake just because of the shape of it? Next is we add additional weight to it. So we've got the weight of the boat itself, but then we can add ballast. You've got built-in ballast, the water tanks that can fill up in as little as a minute and a half with the ram fill on Centurion, to as much as 15, 20 minutes to fill a tank on older used boats that are, early to mid 2000s. And then you've got the add-on weight. It can be bags of lead, it can be additional fat sacks full of water, it can be people. But that ballast is going to sink that boat further down in the water, increasing the displacement as it moves through, producing a larger wake. And then you have obstructing the flow of water. So these are things like Malibu Surfgate that they have the patent on still for another decade or so. Our Nautique surf system, which is a similar concept. Or tabs, which are just tabs at the back transom of the boat that are going to go down. Some of them have an angle to them that are going to create more displacement of water sheerly because you're running the water over the tabs, you're obstructing the flow, and you're creating the wake behind you. And then you have wedges, which you'll find Malibu uses a wedge that's going to allow you to adjust the shape and the size and the characteristics of the wake. And there's all of these different combinations. Now, one's not necessarily better than another. They're just different ways to create different types of wakes. Some people say, I like the tab wakes better. They produce a better wake. Other people say, I like the gates better. I like that wake better. Well, that's a personal preference, and that's why I'm not going to rate these boats on wakes. I'm going to rate the boats on everything else, and I'm going to suggest you zero in on the ones that are best for you, and then go out and actually surf them. Get up with a dealer, get on your friend's boat, rent a boat on BoatSetter or Get My Boat, and go out and try the wakes via that surf system that you're looking at, okay? Just pay attention to the generations of the surf system. We'll talk about that in a little bit. As they've gotten better, make sure if you're looking used that you surf behind that generation of the surf system because they continue to improve it and make better and better surf wakes specifically. All right, so let's start with ATX is part of the Taiga group. So they're owned by the same company. They've got a 22, a 20, 22, and 24. Now, when we look at it, they're using a tab system. They've also adjusted their hull to be, they call it the convex V hull. So it's a V hull, which is going to have a little bit more displacement than a flat hull. And then they convex it, so it kind of comes up on the transom. You can see that line there. That gives the wake its characteristics. Some people like it, some don't, but that's how they're doing it. And then when you look at the helm, you can see it has one touchscreen, but it also has analog rocker switches that are going to allow you to turn on some of the systems, turn on the blower, make some adjustments to the boat. Looking at the helm of a boat is a great way to tell, is it a premium brand? Is it a mid-tier or a value brand? That's a pretty good indication. Or I'm sorry, Axis, which is owned by Malibu. They've got the A series and the T series. It's really about, is it a sharp V on the bow, or is it the pickle fork that gives you a wider front, but you've got the look of the pickle fork? Some people like it, some don't, but it does give you additional room and potentially a different additional weight depending on how they build the boat. Because Axios is a Malibu company, they've got the Malibu Surfgate, which is patented, and they have the Power Wedge, which is going to be more of a shaper of, do you want the wave to be long and mellow, or you want it to be taller with more push? They have their own engines, which they're marinizing the engines. They're not building the blocks in-house, but they're marinizing them in-house so they can put all of the accessories on. They call that the Malibu Monsoon engine. And then if you look at the helm, we've got some touchscreens, and but it's a pretty simple looking helm as you look at the Axios. That one I'm going to put in the value category, with Malibu being the premium in that group. Then we're going to move to Centurion. Remember, it's a Correct Craft company owned by the same company that owns Nautique and Supreme. They've got the PCM engines, again, owned by Correct Craft, so that engine is owned by them. They've got the Opti V hull. They're probably one of the best hull designs specifically for wake surfing wakes, okay? They've done a really good job of designing that. They also use a tab system. So they've got the hull doing a good job of displacing, and then they've got the tabs to dial that wake in even better. They also have their ram fill setup, which is a very quick fill system for the ballast tank. So you can move water around, weight around in the boat pretty quickly and easily. And again, Centurion's more of a premium brand. If you look at the helm, you can definitely see that coming out in the helm area. Very well-built boat. I sold Centurion for a period of time when they were mainly focused on the wakeboarding back in the Enzo days. Next, we've got Heyday. Heyday's owned by the Brunswick company. They've got the 2023 on the WT Surf, and then they have the H22 and the H20. The redesign, Heyday, when they first came out, they really focused on the hull to make a great wake. And so their design, if you look at the boats, the black ones, they kind of have that stubby nose, and they really got a lot of flack for not being very good looking boats. They've improved the looks, I think, with the H series, but it's something that Heyday got kind of dinged for. Although they don't have a surf system, they really designed that hull to deliver a solid wake, and it does. You can add aftermarket options on wedges, tab systems, which we'll talk about in the used boat section, but it makes out of the box, it makes a pretty darn good wake for a value boat that's going to allow you to be around the 100,000 mark. They're owned by Brunswick, so obviously they use the Mercury inboard engines. They have got the the in-hull design, it's got a 117-degree dead rise, which is a lot of angle, which is why they're able to produce the wake that they do without the surf systems. If you look at the helm, though, very analog, very basic. And again, they're doing this to hit a price point to keep that investment down. And if you notice in the engine or the bottom corner picture, they've got the bathtub seats in one of their models, which is kind of goofy until you talk to heyday owners that say they're the hottest seat in the house. People love them. Those bathtub seats, especially kids, really get a kick and enjoy that seat design. If Malibu's got the M, the LSV, and the LX. If you were to go like premium to less premium, I would go the M series, then the LSV series, then the LX series. Malibu, very much a premium level brand. And if you look, they've got the Malibu Surfgate and they've got the Wedge 3. That's their surf system. If you look at the helm, much more advanced, much more high-tech looking, with almost all touchscreens, the glass cockpit idea compared to their counterpart, the Axios. And again, they've run in the Malibu Monsoon engines. As we go to Mastercraft, a very well-known brand in the industry. They've got the flagship X-Star family, the X, the XT, and the NXT, and the Pro Star is a flat bottom inboard direct drive ski boat. So if you're looking at surfing, you want to stay away from that. The NXT is their value model. So you get the brand prestige of Mastercraft, but the NXT is going to scale it back. So your investment is down lower, the X-Star being the premium there. If you look at all of the different sizes, they've got huge market share. They also have the most options of boats and typically the most dealers in a market area as well. But if you look at the hull design, they've got a very deep V, so that hull's going to produce a nice wake. They have what they call their Surfstar system, which are tabs, which are going to allow bigger wake and shaping control. They run the Ilmor engines, which is a exclusive deal that they have with the Ilmor engine manufacturers, a premium level boat. They build a very nice boat. They are one of the names. If you say, I've got a Mastercraft, everybody knows what you're talking about. Next, we move to MB Boats. Now, this is a much, much smaller manufacturer. They've got two models, the Tomcat and the B52. I personally, they're not in my area. I'm in the Carolinas, so I've not inspected these boats personally, which I have. Most of these, I've gone to countless boat shows over the years, and some of the pictures that you're seeing are from boat show inspections. Some are pulled online because they showed it better. But I could, other than the looks of them, I couldn't tell a huge difference in their marketing messaging in my research to tell much difference between the two. But if you look, it's a very dated helm. It's in my opinion, a very dated boat. They were kind of made their name during the wakeboard days in the early to mid 2000s. And it seems like they haven't really gotten on board with the surfing. You'll notice their freeboard, their depth of the boat isn't as much as some of the newer ones. As you list your boat, that extra freeboard allows you to list more before you get to the point where you're going to take water over and potentially sink your boat. And again, the helm's very dated, and we'll talk about where I rank them. But they're a regional player. Most of their dealers are on the West Coast mountain area, not many in the Central and the East Coast. So you want to pay attention to that. For resale value, I think is where it's going to come and get you. Next, we move to Moomba, owned by Skier's Choice. They've got their Mackay, the Cayenne, the Craze, the Max, the Mojo, and the Mondo. And you can see they're mainly separated by length. So the Mackay is 24.5 feet. The Craze is 22. The Max is 22.5. And the Craze and Max it's more of a sharp bow versus a wide bow. And then if you look at the Mojo and the Mondo at 23 and 20 feet. So it's really not a matter of premium to entry. It's more a matter of size on there. When you look at the design of the Moomba, they've got the Inmar Raptor engines, a very common engine for a lot of different manufacturers. Their Flow Surf system, which is a tab-based system, the Smart Plate and the Auto Wake. And the Moomba is a good solid boat, but it's in that kind of that value category. Again, you look at that helm, they've got one touchscreen, and then everything else is analog push buttons, on or off buttons, and that kind of tells you where it is in the category. Then we move to Nautique, another big brand name. They've got the G series with the G23 and 25 Paragon being the top of the line. Then they've got just their regular G series. They've got their GS series, which you'll notice not as much freeboard. So it's more of a do-it-all type of wake boat. You can surf behind it for sure. It's got all the surf systems. You can wakeboard behind it. It makes a great wakeboard. But you can also put some settings so you can actually slalom, and it's got a reasonable slalom wake. Not as good as a direct drive inboard, but a better slalom wake than any of the newer wake surf boats will make. And now they've got the S series, which they've just introduced this year, which is very much a surf-focused boat, a surf-focused hull design, and it's got the that sharp-looking V, whereas the G series has more of the wide bow area. When it comes to the waves, I think they're very similar in the way the boat is going to make waves, with the S maybe being a little bit better, but I haven't inspected one personally. It's hard to say what they're doing. They didn't have a real clear message on their website about the difference. Even the video that Sean Murray did, again, they run the PCM engines, which is owned by them. They've got the Nautique surf system, which instead of a wedge like the surf gate on the Malibu, it's just a little slide. You can see it right here where it kind of slides out of the side of the boat. It's about maybe three inches or so, and it kind of contours down with the bottom of the boat to give a better shape to it. If you look at the helm, very updated helm. They call it the Nautique surf system, the hydro gate, and the micro tuner. So they've got all of these different things to really dial in a nice wake. I've surfed the G, and it was a huge wake as a beginner. Just like the Mastercraft, the prestige of the name. If you buy a Nautique, the quality is way up there. The wake is very good from all indications from all different levels of surfer. It can be adjusted significantly. Pavati is a very niche boat, very custom, very high end price wise. It's an aluminum hull. From what I understand, I've not surfed one. I've not the greatest surf wake of any of the surf boats, but by far the highest ticket, $400,000 or $500,000 for either a 24 or 26. This is the type of boat that you get if you want to turn heads, if you drive a McLaren or a Lamborghini or something like that. It's about the prestige of ownership. If you look at the helm, it's decked out with the screens and with the lights. The surf system is the Riptide surf system, the aluminum deep V hull, very durable, the only aluminum boat that's not in the pontoon segment. And it's about the VIP all access experience. It's about being the only Pavati on the lake. It's about the customization, the personalization of the boat, and the customer service from that manufacturer. Then we move to Sanger. If you look at the Sanger boat, they're a West Coast boat. Again, you can see they haven't upgraded to the surf style yet. That's still a very wakeboard looking boat where it doesn't have a lot of freeboard. It's not super deep because the listing is not something you do when you're wakeboarding at 18 to 22 miles an hour, but you do it when you're surfing at 10 to 12 miles an hour. Within the Sanger, they've got the SL, which is kind of the top level, the S, and then the VTX, or the V series, which is going to be a little bit down. Again, you look at that helm, very basic, very dated looking as well. They just haven't kept up. They do have their quick shape surf system, which are, again, the tab design, which a lot of people tend to like the tab setup versus the gate. But again, surf the boat so you know what you're looking for. Just like the MB, Sanger is a brand that's fairly well known on the West Coast, but not as well known on the East Coast and the rest of the country. So for resale value, that may be something to keep in mind. Considerably smaller dealer network. Then we move to Supra. Supra, again, a skier's choice company. So Moomba is the value, and then Supra is the higher end. You've got the SE, the SL, and the SA are kind of high to low. So SE is the top down to SA. And when we look at the Supra, it's a little bit higher end. Again, you see the dash. It's more of the glass cockpit with multiple screens with joystick control. It's running the Raptor engine again, the Inmore Raptor, and they've got their tab system, their Super Tab system, the Swell Surf System 3. They're on the version 3 right now, and the Supra Launch System. They've got the same surf system on both the Moomba and the Supra. And if you notice, I want to point this out. This right here, this little stainless steel, that's the exhaust. What they've discovered on the surf boats is because of the speeds that people surf and the close proximity to the transom, they've found that it's best to route that exhaust out and down so it comes out behind the rider and you're not surfing in exhaust fumes, which can cause carbon monoxide poisoning, upset stomach, headaches, and things like that. So if you see that, it's more popular in the last 5-6 years. It's an option on some, it's standard on others. But if that level of safety is a concern, something you might want to look for is the exhaust down into the water so it comes up past the rider and you're not having carbon monoxide. I've done a full video on it. If you're not sure what carbon monoxide can do, I've done a full video. You can watch that on the channel. Next, we move to Supreme, another correct craft company. So Centurion and Nautique are the two premium. Supreme is the value line. When you look at the Supreme, you've got the ZS and the S. It's really about the bow design on those two. They've got the same tab surf system that you find more on the Centurion, but their hull design is different. So they've got the quick surf system and the Stinger wake plate, and they've got their Easy V hull. So although it's the same surf system that Centurion uses, the hull is different, which makes a totally different wake. The value of the Supreme, again, you look at the helm, you've got one screen, and then you've got analog switches. In my opinion, I'm not opposed to analog switches. Some of the more high-end boats with their high-end touchscreens, if you ever have an issue with the touchscreen, some of your systems will go away. They've gotten smarter over the years where they can now have an override so you can still empty the ballast tank. You can still retract the surf systems, whatever they are, even if the screens go out. But it's one more piece of technology that on a boat could potentially fail versus the more reliable analog switches. So next we move to Taiga. So we talked about the Taiga is the ATX is their value brand, and Taiga's got the ZX, the RZX, and the Z class. So you would put the ZX and the ZRX is the pickle fork, so is the wider bow versus the more sharp pointy bow. Aesthetics, roominess of the bow, how many people you can get in is really what you'll be looking at there. The Z class is kind of their. So with the Taiga, you've got the TAPS 3 system, same surf system used on the ATX, and the Go system, very much tab focused with a little bit of a kind of a wedge, but that's more of a shaper for the wakes. You look at the helm, glass cockpit, very modern looking, a sharp looking boat in their redesigns on their ZS and their ZX and their ZXR. There's a lot of letters in this one, so it's getting them a little bit confused. But again, Taiga is the more premium brand to their value brand, the ATX. And then we move to Verati. Now, Verati's kind of a newer entrance into the game. They've been building boats just for a couple of years. They're owned by Flow, which is a dock building company. And they say, we're innovators. That's where they've positioned themselves in the market. And they're innovating the wake surf boat. To me, when you look at it, they're not very common. They're a startup. There's not many of these boats being built. They've got a very small dealer network. And most of the dealers that I was able to find are their dock dealers. So the level of service that you'll get with these boats, the ability of getting tech work done, the ability, it seems like a boat, unless you're in the area where they're built, the resale value is gonna struggle with these until they take off or don't make it and stop making these boats. So I'd be very cautious with looking at this brand if they're even available in your market. If you're looking used, if you're looking pre-owned, a couple of things you need to know is sort of the progression of the towboat market. So back in the 90s, the towboats were all about slalom skiing, which is very tiny wakes, the smallest wake you can, and running at 35 miles an hour, where you're cutting back and forth, running a slalom course. That's what the boats were designed to do back in the 90s, early 2000s. Wakeboarding kind of came on and they said, hey, we've got to build boats that are going to produce a bigger wake so they can wakeboard and they can jump. You started putting towers on the boats. So 2008 and older, you're seeing a lot of flatter bottoms that are going to deliver flat wakes. So if you're looking used and you're looking to surf that boat, you want to try to find a boat that's at least got a V drive where the motor's all the way in the back and the shaft runs forward and then back making a V, versus the direct drive where the motor's in the middle of the boat and there's a shaft that runs straight back. That weight in the middle of the boat isn't going to displace as much water as the weight in the back, where it's going to sink that butt end of the wake down and make a bigger wake. Now, can you turn a direct drive flat bottom boat into a wake boat, a surf boat? You can. You just have to be careful of a couple of things and maybe add some additions on, which we'll talk about in a little bit. In 2009 to 2012, they started saying, hey, let's add a bunch of ballast in. Let's weight these boats down so that we can produce a better wakeboarding wake. Wake surfing was kind of getting started then, but the manufacturers hadn't stepped up. 2013 to 2020, they started saying, hey, let's not just put the ballast in, but let's put some of these surf systems on. Malibu's Wake Gate, the tab systems that a lot of manufacturers are using, and everybody's come up with their own design to avoid patents and to market it. In 2020 and newer, they've really gotten good at not just producing a good wake, but making it easy to set for your style. So in 2013 to 2020, the wakes, they can make a good wake, but they weren't very precise. So there was a lot of talk about how I'm trying to dial in my wake. I'm trying to get the ballast set just right and the weight just right, because every time you move somebody in the boat, it adjusts the way the wake shapes. It's the size, the push of it. The fuel level that you have in the boat can make a difference, or the number of people you have in the boat. In 2020, they started putting sensors on, which is kind of going to sense the attitude of the boat, and touchscreens where you can set 4 or 5 different settings all at one time, including speed, which makes a big difference on the size and the shape of the wake. As you're looking at used, you want to kind of double check of what year's the boat, what generation is that surf system, and everybody made the changes and kind of as it progressed about in these years. So use this as a guide to say, oh, I'm looking at a 2007 boat. What kind of ballast were they offering, or is it aftermarket ballast? And then if you want, hey, my budget's 30 grand. I need to look at something older than 2008. That's okay. But just know you can add aftermarket products on. So you can add surf system tabs on. You can add a $500 wedge that suction cups to the side of the boat and makes a very surfable wake on almost any boat, all the way to a $10,000 surf system that you can deploy automatically from the helm. Perfect pass. I mentioned the speed makes a big difference in the size and shape of your wake. So having the ability to set your speed at 10.5 miles an hour or 11.2 miles an hour, which is about as fast as you want to go, can be very valuable for some drivers if you're really getting serious. That's about $2,000 can be added on. And then if you've got one of the older ski boats or wakeboarding specific boats, you may want to think about upgrading to a surf style prop. Remember, wakeboarding, you're running 18 to 22 miles an hour. Surfing, you're running maybe 10 to 12 miles an hour. So you want to run much slower, but you're putting as much weight in the boat. So you still need to be able to get up into those speeds and hold it consistently, right? So the prop size and style is a change that you can make to a little bit cheaper boat that doesn't have all the surf stuff, but will make your surfing much more enjoyable. But it's investment dollars to get that performance out of it. So those are a couple of things. There's links down below to some of these products. If you want to check them out, you can definitely do that. So here's my ranking. And I always hesitate to do this, and you can see the ranking in front of you, but when you're looking at a new boat specifically, you want to make sure that you buy the quality level that you want. So premium, mid-tier, and value is how I break them down. You also want to check the dealer. The dealer on a boat like this, there's so many systems, they're so complicated, there's so much training that goes involved in these boats. You really want to make sure that you choose the right dealer. And the difference between the boats is not significant. The difference between your ownership experience dealer to dealer may be significant. So it's quality of the boat construction, then it's the wave, which the only way you can do that is surf it for yourself, is know what the wave is going to be like for you. So that means going to the dealer, going to a surf demonstration day. Most wake boat dealers are going to do at least a weekly surf day or set up a private demo if you're serious about buying a boat. So go surf that wake, and then the relationship with the dealer. How well are they going to take care of you in the market area? And then finally, the price comes into play, because the Nautique may surf perfect for you. The dealer's amazing, but you don't want to drop 300 grand on your surf boat. That says, okay, now we need to adjust. So all of those factors come into play. There's a lot of things to consider, but this is my ranking. Pavati number 1, just because of the cachet of it. Probably not the best boat on the list, but if you want to turn heads, that's the way to go. Then I would go Nautique, Supra, Centurion, Malibu, Mastercraft in the premium level, knowing that there's a tiny, tiny difference between each of them. And the wake is probably the deciding factor that would make you move it around, and the dealer. That's what's going to move it around. The price you can negotiate as well. Mid-tier, I put Taiga. Taiga could probably be in the premium category, but it would definitely be towards the bottom. Sanger, MB, and Verati, they build good quality boats, but they are more focused on wakeboarding. If you just look at the style, you can tell they don't have that big, deep freeboard that's going to allow you to list that boat safely without getting too far down. So because of their dated helms, because of their style, they're well-built boats, don't get me wrong, but because of those factors, I put them in the mid-tier. And then you look at the Heyday, Supreme, Moomba, Axios, and ATX are in the value side. The reason I put Heyday first is if you can get over the looks factor, it's a good, solid boat. If you want, you can be right around 100 grand with most of these as I speak right now. Prices, who knows where they're going to go in the future. But as I create this, you do a little bit of surf system, but out of the gate, it surfs really well without any surf system. So you put a $500 wedge on it and it gets even better. That's where I rank the value brands. Again, there's such a slight difference between them that you move it around based on the wake, how it works for you, the dealer relationship, and the price you can negotiate, which I think is very important. If you're looking at buying a boat, I suggest you go grab the Boat Buyers Toolkit. It'll allow you to evaluate all the boats on these different categories. It's totally free, boatbuyerstoolkit.com. If you found this video valuable, give it a thumbs up. It tells YouTube that this is good content that other people looking for wake boats should view. If you're an owner of one of these boats, do me a favor, put the year and put your surf level. Are you an advanced, an intermediate, or a beginner on the surf side? And give what you love about or would change about your boat so we can start building a database on the specific models and the specific years so that people that are looking pre-owned or come see this video in 3 years, they can really get a sense and extra value from your experience of owning and surfing these boats over the long haul. Thank you very much. Remember, life truly is better on a boat.
Let's pull up the anchor and run this podcast back to the dock. We'll be back again with another helpful and fun episode next time. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, visit boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/guest, and I'll help offer insights into your boat research and shopping experience. Also, we'd appreciate it if you took just 2 minutes to rate and review this podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. It helps others find us so we can help more boaters. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it in your boating groups on social media. They will certainly thank you. And by the way, if you haven't already, grab your free Boat Buyers Secret Weapon Toolkit at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/toolkit. And so you don't pay too much for your next boat, visit boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/save for a short video. Now, before we go, I want to leave you with a few first-time boating tips for when you own your new boat. Number 1, know your local boating laws, basic navigation rules, and how to operate your boat safely. It'll make boating even more fun for everyone. 2, be aware of your wake at all times and pay attention to no wake zones because you are responsible for your wake. When maneuvering at slow speeds, you can put out an enormous wake. If going slow, be courteous, save some fuel, and drop down to idle speed, just in forward gear to ensure there is no wake. This could save you an expensive ticket and will keep you from being that guy on your waterway. Number 3, boats do not have headlights. They have docking lights, specifically made for seeing in tight quarters and docking. Do not turn your docking lights on while cruising down the water. It can blind other boaters and is very dangerous and, again, could save you an expensive ticket. Number 4, follow the maintenance schedule for your boat. Change the oil, impeller, gear lube, winterize if you need to winterize in your area. Inspect your trailer tires, bearings, and grease the hubs if you're a trailer boater to ensure you don't experience expensive and unnecessary repairs that will impact your boating time. Number 5, always double check your plug is in, your battery is charged, and the fuel is full before heading out for a day on the water. It could just save your boating day. And if you're a trailer boater, I've got a few extra tips. Number 1, at the boat ramp, prepare your boat, your gear, and your guests in the staging area. Then, when you're ready, back down the ramp, unload the boat, head to the parking lot, and right back down to your boat to be fast and courteous to your fellow boaters and don't tie up that ramp unnecessarily. Next, use transom tie-down straps when trailing your boat. Very bad things can happen if you don't, and they do happen. 3, check everything in the boat is secure before heading down the road. Seat cushions, gear, keys, towels, even tubes and lily pads can get blown out when pulling your boat down the highway or interstate. And most important, have fun. Enjoy your boat and get on the water as much as possible because life truly is better on a boat. Until next time, this is your friend in boating, Captain Matt.